class title is Plain Hard to Get, and it's about accessing partially indexed or unindexed digital records. When we think about these records, two important components to these records are place and time. And for this reason, creating a timeline is your best research tool. Some of the things that you want to put on your timeline are vital details. Those include the birth and death of date and location of parents, siblings, and children. Some different, I categorized them into 4 categories: vital, civic, religious, and social. So then you can add some civic or records that are kept by the government. And that would be marriage records, divorce records, census records, voter registration, naturalization, land records, vehicle registration, draft registration. The next category would be religious events, and those would be church ordinances, sacraments. I know Catholic Church, there's 7 different sacraments, so that's 7 different days in a person's life that you can find out where and when they're at, or different rituals like a bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. Different churches keep church membership records or church censuses. And in the social category, residential directories, yearbooks, different civic or different volunteer groups, and newspapers. We can find a lot of Mary traveled from here to here, you know, or the children of John Bailey attended his funeral, and then it lists the children and where they're from. That's a date that we can add to their timeline, especially if the location is different from what we had before. So you don't have to record all these events, but if you do, it's a great way to start a life story for that person. But you definitely want to record the vitals, and you want to record the vitals of the parents, siblings, and children. And then you definitely want to add in any event that shows them in a new location and the date that that event happened. And what that does is it helps you understand where they are at a certain time period, so you know where to look for the records. Most records initiate at a county level or a town level, and then sometimes copies are sent to the state. So it's good to know where they're at that certain time period, and also to know what records are available at that time period. You wouldn't look in draft registrations if they were born in 1949, because the first and second, well, I guess they do have draft registrations. They have to sign up when they're 18. But you wouldn't look in the World War I or World War II draft registrations if they weren't born until 1949. So it's good to understand where and when your people are. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about microfilms before we started. So the microfilm contains images of all types of records. At the beginning of the image, or at the beginning of the images, there will be a title board, and that contains the microfilming details. A lot of times it'll say the date, who is doing the microfilming, and it'll have some other technical information, like I think one's something to do with the camera. I didn't memorize all the technical stuff. And a lot of times these will be white. Then you might see some of these title boards that are black and contain a number. That's the item number. So a film that has different sets of records on the same roll of microfilm, they will break it up with an item number. For instance, if you have something like Clark County records, and the first item is going to be birth records. Second item is going to be marriage records. Third item is going to be death records. They'll all be on the same microfilm, but they'll be indicated by those title title boards with the number, and we'll look at some of those in just a minute. So sometimes there's also images there that kind of talk about the film, whether it's the beginning of the roll. There'll be an image that says that. Sometimes it'll say it's a continuation from another roll or the end of the roll. Also, it might give instructions about damage to the records. It might say that there's significant ink damage, ink splotches. There might be torn, it might warn of torn pages. And so there's some information that's been recorded via images for the microfilms. So also attached to these microfilms in Family Search are film notes, and they give details about the content of what's on the film. And most often it includes a time range. So again, when you decide what you're looking for your ancestor, you'll want to choose the films that are within that time frame that your ancestor lived, or within the time frame that you believe he got married or she got married. Also, there will be an item number, and that would be the one that refers to the title block, item number title block in the film. And then if there is a camera, it means that there are images available for that record. If there's a magnifying glass, it means that part or all of the images have been indexed. I would say for safety's sake, maybe assume that it's only a partial indexing of the collection, because they try to get the records out as soon as they can. So when they have part of the collection indexed, they will go ahead and put it out there to be searchable on the database. So in order to browse the images, that's what we call it, we go over here on Family Search to the search section. There's a couple ways you can do it. You can go down to the catalog, or you can go up here to records. We're going to go through the catalog method first, and then we will do the records one. So when we click on catalog, it's similar to a library catalog. We are going to search by location first. When you search by location on here, you want to start with the largest government entity. So in this case, it's going to be United States. We're going to do Idaho and Oneida. So Oneida is a county in Idaho. And like I said, a lot of the records initiate on a county level. So I like to go down to the county first. And then I'm going to click search. And this tells me the roles or the microfilm categories that pertain to Oneida County, Idaho. And we're going to go to land records. And you can see I tested this first because I always like to test first. And then stuff goes wrong still, but that's okay. So we're going to choose claims 1865 to 1910. So my great-great-grandfather, John J. Williams, came to Oneida County, Idaho, right at the beginning. And so we're going to check here for some land claims for him. So once I click on it, it gives me a description. Oh, actually, let me go back. So we can see that it breaks down further into different categories. And we decided that we're going to do land claims, but there's also marks and brands. He was a rancher. He'd probably have some information under there. He eventually bought land in town, so he probably has a deed record in there. When we go to claims, it opens up the notes on the microfilm category. And then down here we have film digital notes. It gives the note, the location of where the film is, what collection it is, the film, and item number. So this is that item that I was talking about. We can see that the preemption claims, and we want the earliest ones because he was right there at the beginning, are item 1. But the later ones from 1885 to 1910 are item 3. So they're both on the same film. This is just going to help you when you go to that film, be able to find those later ones by looking for the black title page with the white 3. And then the camera means that the images are available. The microscope, the magnifying glass, thank you, means that it's either all indexed and searchable, or it's partially indexed and searchable. Okay, so we're going to click on the camera. And we can, here's that title page with the 1. I'm going to zoom in on it for a minute. And it tells me who the operator was, the date that it was filmed, details about the actual microfilm itself, where it was filmed, and the title of the record. So this is a multi-image view. And if it were that number 3 that we were looking at, we would scroll down for a long ways until we saw the black number 3. Or we could go up here to the image in the corner, and we can do, let's do 400. And then scroll until we see it. I'm a little impatient. So have you ever played higher or lower on Price is Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I think of these image things. You know, you try the high number, the low number. There we go. So there's the end of 2 and the beginning of 3. So we're going to go back up to our number 1 because that's the one that we wanted. Okay. So then we kind of talked a little bit about navigating this. You can skip to different image numbers by changing it up here. Right now it's on the multi one. You want to go close up. And then you can change page by page, or if you want to go back to the multi-image one, you click on the little array of dots out there. So in our records, we need to kind of think about how those records are set up. They're either going to be set up by date or alphabetically. So by date, it's records like land records, birth records, marriage records. It's recorded as the date happens. Alphabetically might be when you have a group of records being done all at once, like the draft registrations. Those are going to be in alphabetical order. So as you scroll through the film, it's going to be in alphabetical order. The ones that are by date, a lot of times will have an index at the beginning. So looking at these small images, you can kind of tell that the writing is different where there's an index. It's not a paragraph. It doesn't look like a paragraph, but on the other pages, it looks like a paragraph. That's a good indication that there's an index at the beginning. So you can do kind of your alphabet to figure out where your page might be. This one, there's actually more than one letter on a page. A lot of the indexes, it'll just have one letter on a page. So because William's at the end of the alphabet, I chose one of the latter pages. And sure enough, we have U, W, V, Y, and Z on this page. And you can tell there's a lot of Williamses. My grandpa was John J. This is John H. And this is JJ. which he did go by his initials a lot. So I'm fairly confident that this is my grandpa, John Jones, and he's on page 109. So this is really where we start to do the higher or lower game from Price is Right. So right now I'm on image 8, and he's supposed to be on page 109. So a good guess would be to add 8 and 9 together. And I'm going to go to 117. And I'm way off because there's 2 pages on each image. So then I'm going to go maybe half of that. And I'm at 102, which is really close. So then I'll just go page by page till I get to 109. And here is.
Does anybody have questions about this? Because what she did was take you to the page that will direct you, kind of like the index that will direct you to the area. Anyway, does anybody have questions about that?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. So then this takes us to
Oops, sorry.
Oh, no problem. Did you have a question, Julia?
I do. I tried that yesterday, and I guess obviously I must be completely off, and maybe I didn't understand about looking for that item number, but when it said, when I found the name and it had a number next to it, I went to that page, but it wasn't there. You know how when you just showed that?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly what I did wrong.
So the image number and the page number are usually different numbers. You went to the page number.
Well, I found it like you just did with the person where it said that person should be on a certain page number, you know, like 109. And obviously I might have been in the wrong area then because he wasn't there. It was, you know, I was way off. So
can you remember what that one was?
No, of course not. That was yesterday.
Okay, well, think about it. And at the end, if you can remember, we'll see if we can find the image. It'll be good practice.
All right.
Okay. So this is the record that we were looking for. And going back to the index, doing that, I'm just going to go back to number 1. And then do my little array. I could probably go through there's only like 4 pages right here for the index. I could probably go through there and find several relatives. So, you know, if I wanted, I could peruse a little more and find out a few more things. So that's how we would do it with the card catalog. The other way we can browse our records is when we go to search, we choose records. And this is going to bring up the database fields that we usually search with. But then over here, we're going to go by location. And this time we're going to go to Sweden. So we click on the general location of the country we want to go to. And then from the drop-down menu, we can choose Sweden. And this time we're going to look at church records instead of government records. And again, because some of the records are indexed, the first thing it brings up is the opportunity to search the indexed records. But we want to scroll down to these image-only records, and we're going to click Show All 8. So it'll always default to show the top 5, but we want to show all 8. And this gives us our 8 collection titles. Let me refresh. There we go. So over here, these are all the different regions in Sweden. And we have browse image, and then we have a date that it's been updated. So if it says browse image, none of them have been indexed yet. If we go down here and we see these smaller numbers, a lot of times those are only partially indexed. This one was updated September 2nd, 2020. There's only 50,000 records, so it's probably still being indexed. So if we didn't find it in a search, we would want to come here and browse the records to find our information. Okay, so if you click on one that's partially indexed, let's do Uppsala. It gives you the option to search again, and you just scroll down and do the browse through images. So now, like our other ones where we went from the biggest entity to the smaller ones, in this region of Sweden, these are all of the parishes for the Lutheran Church. So let's choose let's choose Ramsta. I don't have any relatives here. Okay, so so we've gone smaller with the parish. Now these are the different types of records that you can choose from. The first one is the household record. So in Swedish records, the priest went out every year and interviewed the families and recorded births, marriages, deaths. He even recorded when they moved. And that was recorded in this book, which is a moving in, moving out book, because you kind of had to have permission in Sweden to move. And so they would record where you moved from and where you moved to. And then this is the births and christenings. And then this is just the general record for the parish. So on births and christenings, it then gives us four different date ranges. So I need to know when my ancestor was born or general time frame. Actually, I'm going to do a different one. Let's do Ackerby. Okay, so this one also has weddings and bands. And so let's go to the births on this one. And we'll do 1861. So this is 1748 to 1861. I'm going to go to the end of it. So these are going to be in chronological order. So we'll say my ancestor was born a little later, because I just happened to pick a very old section. So here we have 1861, and then it lists by the number of births and gives us the information. So if they were born around 1830, then I would start doing the higher and lower game until I found the date 1830 on the record. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so on this one, it's a little different than the other one, because on the other one, I could go back to the list of collections that were on the film. On this one, they have links up here at the top. So we have Sweden, Uppsala Church Records, and then the parish, and then the type of book, or the type of record. So if we click on the type of the record, if we had more, it would bring up the other dates available for that type of record. If we click on the parish, it brings up the other types of records for that parish. And if we click on the region, it brings up the other parishes. So that moving book that I told you about tells you which parish they moved to. So you would just go back up here and then go to the new parish to find their records. So when you do it this way, you can go through it's a little easier to skip around. And you notice that there weren't any item numbers. When you do it this way, it also takes you right to where it's at in the film. One thing though, not all of the films in the catalog are accessible this way. So because there's more setup that goes to being able to access them this way. So eventually I'm sure they all will be. So, but that's just something to keep in mind. You might want to check the catalog and do it the research way. Are there any questions on this one? I did put all this stuff in the handout too. Okay. So let's see. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. Let's go back to the catalog one real quick. And we're gonna go to the same place. Let's see, land records, claims. I don't remember what image number, but I remember it was close to 55. Okay. So while we have our image up, there's a few things that we can do from this image. We can print the image out up here in the upper right-hand corner. We can add it to our source box, and our source box is just like an online storage place. So it would keep the link to this record in the storage box, and anytime we wanted to access it, we could. We can add little notes to it. We can download it to our computer if we wanted to keep it in our files. The tools are just ways to adjust it that you might see a little better. For instance, if the handwriting's really bad, you can try inverting the to the negative, and sometimes the white lettering shows up a little better on black than the black does on kind of the gray of the paper. You can also adjust the brightness to help see better and the contrast. So they're just ways to help see the image a little better. And then the other thing we can do that's really neat is we can attach this to people in the tree. So we're going to click attach to family tree, and then we need to give it a title. So we're going to do possessory claim for John J. Williams, Oneida, Idaho, States. Boy, I can't type fast. And then in the notes, we can explain what this record is, why it's important, or who's involved in the record. If we click on this, it adds it to our source box. Whenever you're creating a new source, it's a good idea to add it to your source box. And then down here at the bottom right, we select a person. And I'm gonna select, let's see, I don't have his ID. If you've been working on someone, it will bring them up as the people to select. But since I didn't search from him, it didn't bring him up. So I'm gonna grab his ID real quick. And it asks if there's anyone else that I want to attach this record to. So we could, none of his children or his spouse are named on here, so I wouldn't attached to them necessarily, but that's how you would do it. And then you can click next. Reason I think this is a match, land claim in same location as descendants' current property. I'm sure there's a better reason than that, but I can edit that later. And then you click attach, and then that's attached as a source to John Jones Williams. When you go back to the tree and to his sources, it's going to be down here at the bottom because we just added it and it doesn't have a date. So then you can go in and add a date and it would put it in chronological order with the rest of his sources. And I believe it was 1867 was the date on it. And I can edit it to a more specific date later. And so now it's in line with all of his other sources on his timeline. And you know, if it was something like the church records, I do get a little wordy with those because they're in Swedish and it's harder for people to understand them. When I add those records, I usually add all the details of the family. So let's do a household record. So on this one, this is where they moved to this, because it always gives the place, their occupation, when they were born, what parish they were born in. So I usually add a little more detail when I'm doing those. But you can do it when you go the other way through the research and down. Any questions so far? Because now we're going to skip over to Ancestry. So you can do something similar on Ancestry. I did check Find My Past and My Heritage. When you have an image up on those two ones, or those two websites, you can use the arrows to scroll one image at a time, but you don't have quite the same capabilities as you do on Family Search and Ancestry to browse the images. So on Ancestry, it's kind of a similar approach. You go to the card catalog. And over here on the left, you can type in words that you might think in the title, be in the title, or keywords. You could type in like Iowa census, and it brings up the records for Iowa that pertain to that. So here's the state census from 1905, different Cherokee rolls, and so forth. Now, unlike Family Search, this one doesn't tell you if there's images in the collection. You have to click on it to see if there's images in the collection. So let's do early land ownership. And nothing popped up, so there's no images in that one. So we'll do one that we know has images, the Iowa. Oh, no, 1905 doesn't. The other Iowa ones do. Let's try. It's not specific to Iowa, but we'll do the 1900 census. Okay. There we go. So now over here we have browse this collection. because it's the 1900 census, we have to choose the state again. So let's choose Idaho. And let's choose Kootenai. And then the township. Let's choose Coeur d'Alene. And there's only one enumeration district to choose from. So we'll click on it. And now we can scroll through or browse through the different records. So it's set up a little differently on here. You don't have the array of images like you do on Family Search. You have a film strip down here at the bottom that shows you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 images at a time. You can get rid of the film strip by clicking on the film strip icon. That hides it, or if you want it back, you can click on that. Again, there's a little box where you can change the number and it'll take you to that image. Or you can scroll through here to find the images. Wow. And then again up here, it has the different subsections. So if we wanted to see other places in Kootenai County, we just click on Kootenai and it brings up the other counties that we can, the other counties that we can choose from. If we click on Coeur d'Alene, it brings up the other townships within Kootenai. So do you have any questions on that? Awesome. I just have to read over my notes real quick to see what I missed. Oops. So back on the card catalog, you can also put in like Arkansas, Arkansas, that's how I have to remember to spell it. Do a search, and then you can choose land records by choosing the category. So court, land, wills, and financial. You can click on land records and it'll show you the collections that cover Arkansas land records. Some of them are US and some of them are specific to Arkansas, like the Arkansas homestead and cash entry patents. And like I said, you have to click on it to see if there's images, and there is not. Okay. Oh, and you can also save it to a person. Let me go to an image. Actually, no, let's go to an image. So when you're on the image page, up here where it says save, you can attach this to someone in the tree. You can save this to your computer or save it to your shoebox. The shoebox is the same thing as the source box. It's online storage or cloud storage for different documents that you want to revisit or you want to keep them safe in case they get unattached somehow. Okay, if you save it to a person in your tree, you can choose which person on the document that you want. Then you can choose which tree you want to save it to. I have a few trees. And then you would type the person in the tree that you want to save it to, and they will start to come up. And you can choose which person in the tree. I'm going to cancel that because it's not the right record for the right person. So do you guys think you would feel comfortable moving around a film strip? How to advance, how to see images further down?
I think so.
Because this really comes in handy when you're searching and it comes up with an image. It helps you to find other things on that film that might be helpful. So we're going to do a search of all collections for William, whoops, not in the right field. William Brock Jones. And we're going to look for a record for him in court. Let me try that again. I think I picked the wrong category. Oh, I need to take the hyphen out. I'm like, here we go. Records. You know how you can't do the same thing twice? Here we go. He's in the wills. I was getting pretty nervous there, starting to sweat. Okay, so William Brock Jones in the wills in Illinois. Nope, that's not the right one. Do we need to go older? There we are. So the other one was probably a shortcut to where we're going, but a lot of times the portion of the film that will get indexed first, or sometime the only portion, is the index at the beginning. And that's just because it's quicker to get the most information out. So if we find him on the index, then, boy, if someone sees it, go ahead and speak up. There it is. So he's actually on several pages, 305 to 310. And since the index doesn't last very long and there's still about 250 pages left on this film, we're going to see if we can find page 305. So getting past the index, here's the first page, and it starts at 1. So let's try adding 150 because there's 2 on each page. So 402. And close, 301, we need 305. And there's the last will and testament of William Brock Jones, deceased. And if we want to see what other records are available for Edgar County, we can click on this And we see that we have an index to the estates. We have unprobated wills, the will records. I did one on a land record earlier. It had the claims, it had the description. So you could go to another section where there was a description of the land, including a drawing. So, you know, once you find the image, you can still kind of look around and see what else is on that film that you might be able to access. I think we might have done something like that for one of your people, Sarah. I can't remember if we use this. And then also, you know, when you're on an image, like the World War II draft registration is a good example. Sometimes when people are indexing, there's a set of multiple images that belong to the same record. And so their instructions are to get all of the information from those 3 images. Say there's 3 sheets of paper in this record. They're supposed to gather the information from those 3 images, and then it's attached to the first image. So when you have something like the World War II draft registration, there's actually 2 images for that, but only one comes up. My computer's starting to go slow. It needs a break. I was going to bring up my grandpa's World War II draft registration.
I recognize that name.
Yeah. Yeah, Sarah and I are related through the Belknaps. Let's see. I have to think what I was doing. World War II draft registration. I'm going to view the image. So here's a significant amount of information. And then on the next is a description of him, any identifying marks in case they needed to identify him. And then the date. Actually, this one, it doesn't look like the date's on there, but the date that he registered. So, you know, when you find a record, go ahead and look a few images before or a few images behind. The 1905 Iowa state census, I believe, is on cards like this. So you only see one person at a time. So what I've done before is I've written down what they give for the location of the person, and it's in alphabetical order. So then I go through the people with that last name, you know, by going right or left on my images, and look for people with that same address. And then I can, there's some other identifying information on there, like that you can kind of make up the family, even though they're each on their own individual cards, by just exploring a little by going through the images. Any questions? Nope, we good?
I guess
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You know, when you were going and down and selecting those out of the catalog and there was no images, is that any value to you, or is it something that maybe later on there might be some images? Or
A lot of times it means they don't have the rights to the image. You can go back and check later. I wish they would kind of have what Family Search has, where they have an indication of whether there's images or not attached to that. And the way they share some collections, sometimes they will share the indexed information, but the images you have to be on the other site to see.
okay.
And like on Family Search, sometimes you'll be on Ancestry and it'll say it's the image comes from Family Search and redirect you.
Yeah.
So Yeah, the card catalog, for the purposes of tonight's class, we needed to find something with an image, but it's still good to search the card catalog for all records. And I think they are adding records like this. These are the new ones, and you can see these are 0. So this is the number of indexed records for that collection. But even though it says 0, you can click on it and it has the images. So you really have to click on the collection title to find whether or not it has the images. And so you can go and look at these images, just 0 of them are indexed.
Okay.
So yeah, awesome. Any other questions?
No.
Cool beans. Any you want to try? Did you remember which one you had, Julia?
Well, I think I found out what I did wrong. I
Oh,
was
perfect.
looking at it and then I was looking at the numbers down at the bottom, you know how they show the number. I wasn't going and looking at the exact page to see that number I was looking for.
Yeah, the image number, the page number are going to be different, I would say 99.9% of the time.
Yeah. So I realized that's what I did.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for letting me present tonight. At the end of the handout, there is a link to the Family Search Wiki with instructions for browsing the Family Search catalog. It's kind of fun to do because you end up finding records that not everyone else finds because they're not indexed, and so they're not the things that pop up for everyone. So it's kind of fun to find that little extra bit of information. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
So I do have a question, Pam.
Sure.
Which do you like better of the catalogs? Do you like Ancestry or Family Search, or they're equal to, depending upon?
I like the Ancestry catalog better. I like the Family Search catalog better, but you're going to have different collections on the 2 different websites. Some collections are going to be the same and some are going to be different. But as far as browsing, I do like the Family Search one, and they've been doing it a little longer. So I think that it's a little easier. Like I said,
I was
you
going to
have
say, is Family Search user-friendly, more user-friendly?
I would say yes. I think having the 2 different ways, because there's always going to be multiple ways you can do something. I think after you've searched for a few records and had a little success, because it'll probably be difficult the first few times. It'll be a learning process. But once you have a little experience with it, I do like the Family Search one for ease of finding what you want, keeping in mind that you need to try both ways. You need to try the card catalog and you need to try the research tab, and you'll find which one. It's kind of like haircuts. Depending on what the record is what you're, the best way you're going to look for it. Swedish records, I would go through the research one every time. But land records, I would go through the catalog every time. So it's just a matter of finding, what works for you. And Ancestry is really good, especially when you find an image, to be able to go up and look at the other images available in that collection. That's really nice. So awesome. That is